Welcome to our live webcast, CEO of You, Mastering Mindset Shifts for Mental Health and Self-Care. Thank you for joining us. My name is Anam Hassan, and I will be providing features of the web event technology, managing the chat, and presenting the session facilitator. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to acquaint you with a few features of the web event technology. At any time, you may adjust your audio using any computer volume settings that you may have. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the Q&A chat window. There is a large window which holds all of your sent messages and a smaller text box at the top where you will type in your questions. To send a question, click in the text box and type your text. When finished, click the Ask button. Your questions will be responded to at the end of the presentation as time permits. We are joined today by our session facilitator, Ceah Justice. Ceah Justice is an uncompromising advocate for social change. She is a DEI executive committed to challenging, changing, and shaping the mindset of others to create a culture of intentional inclusiveness. I invite you to review her full bio, which can be accessed via the DEI Summit virtual event platform. At this time, I would like to turn the microphone over to the session presenter, Ceah Justice, to get us started.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the CEO of You. I am Ceah Justice. I'll be walking you through the power of mastering the mindset shifts required to transform your life. So if you're looking for a full transformation in your life, you're looking to elevate your life, you're in the right workshop here today. As a leadership and development coach with over 20 years of experience leading diverse teams, and now as a DEI executive, so one of the foundational building blocks I have always taught has been around mindset. When you change the lens in which you look at your own life, when you're able to recognize that you and you alone are in charge of your thoughts, you're in charge of your feelings and your actions, it really does transform how you show up in your life, personally and professionally. And it doesn't matter what your job title is, where your career journey, or what you're even facing in your life. When you unlock that power of mindset, when you are intentional about what you allow first step in being the CEO. And so in today's workshop, I'm going to provide you with a road to the power of intentional thinking, a little bit about and understand triggers that could be getting in the way of growing. And then I'm also going to share with you ways on how you can create habits and actions in order to create some sustainable, lasting change. So let's go ahead and kick off the call by understanding what mindset is. And so if I had to describe what mindset is, I would absolutely say it is a collection of thought patterns and beliefs that ultimately shape the perception of reality. In simplest terms, it is the story that is on repeat in your head about who you are, right? And the world around you. And your mind can radically affect the course of your life. If you don't believe that, I need you to lock yourself into that because it is so true. And we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you some examples on how that is a fact. There's overwhelming research currently out there on mindset that shows that the way you think about yourself and the world around you can drastically change. It controls and impacts how you handle stress, how you create success. It also builds into if you are resilient or not. And there are even studies out there that show you, and I am a walk-in textbook example of it, your mindset can actually heal your body. So immune system function, those things are true. And if we really begin to think about mindset, I like to look at it like healthy versus unhealthy mindsets. And I will tell you, majority of the time, we stay in the unspace. If you think about everything that has happened in the world of COVID, if you think about what is happening in this world from a social justice standpoint, it is so easy for us to be and stay in this unhealthy mindset where we feel like we're victims, where we feel like life is happening instead of life happening us or as a result of the things that we do. And when we operate in a healthy mindset, we actually see the world as it actually is. It's just there. It is just the world. It isn't this big conspiracy theory in uprising against us. It is just the world, right? The ability to be able to face and overcome setbacks, because we're looking at this as it is a circumstance. It's not something that is personally happening to us. And when we're in that mindset, we look learning opportunities. In fact, we get excited about seizing the moment to grow because we understand we're in that healthy mindset, that life is a journey and it's all about experiences for us. When we're sitting in that unhealthy mindset space, I almost see mindset, your lens through which you live through life, right? You're looking at life as it's happening to me. How in the world is this world conspiring against me? You view your circumstances as insurmountable obstacles, right? Instead of things that you can overcome. And you stay in this constant state of victim mode. And so if you're sitting right now and you are stressed, think about what I just shared with you, healthy mindset versus unhealthy mindset. And we can see what happens when we are in that unhealthy mindset. I can tell you victim mode is never going to be a place where you're going to be able to thrive. It's never going to be a place where you're going to feel happy. And it's definitely not going to be a place where you're going to be able to escape stress. And so when we begin to talk about mindset, when we begin to talk about self-care, it all rests in making sure that we are in the healthy or abundant mindset space. And so if we think about the benefits of why we want to have an abundance mindset, it has become widely recognized as a beneficial endeavor in personal and spiritual development. And this belief in creating an abundance mindset, it allows us to live a life that is satisfying. If you are sitting in this space, you're going to be happy. See, I'm over here in an abundance mindset space, and I exude happiness despite my circumstances. There's also going to be a feeling of worthiness, right? We're now focused on ourselves. We're focused on, making sure that we are developing. And so there's going to be spikes of creativity, spikes of being inspired. And then you're also able to take advantage of new opportunities because, again, as things are happening in your life, you're going to look at them as opportunities to learn. And so when we start talking about creating meaningful life experiences, we do that when we're sitting in that abundance mindset space. And the thing that I love to call out, again, leading sales teams for over 20 plus years, one of the spaces that I always like people to operate from is a space of confidence. And when you're in that abundance mindset space, you feel secure, right? You're confident in your life endeavors. And because you're walking with that confidence, you begin to manifest all of that greatness back to you. And so you begin to see successful outcomes in your life. And so I don't know about you, but all of these things here on the slide, this is the life that I want to live. This is where I want to be. I want to be always operating from a place of confidence, operate a place where I am at my peak when it comes down to creativity and being inspired. And then we all want to operate from a place where we feel worthy. All right. And so by understanding these signs and signals of both an abundance and a scarcity mindset, we begin to build awareness about where we might be landing on the spectrum. And this graph shows a side-by-side comparison of scarcity versus abundance mindset, and only how these things show up from a physical and an emotional and mental capacity. And so if we're thinking scarcity, again, there's that word victim. You may simply right now be in a place where you're just kind of checked out, right? That is, if we think about where we are coming out of COVID, a lot of us are sitting in that space. We've been beat up on. We're probably, dealing with Zoom fatigue and all that has come along with us being part of this pandemic. But if we look at what happens to us physically, when you're in that scarcity mindset, you're holding your body in a rigid way. Your shoulders are probably tense, right? You're probably clenching your jaw. But think about the emotional space that you're in. energy is draining from you. You're sitting in a place of frustration because remember, scarcity, you're victim. Everything is happening to you. And that's a very draining place to be. You're probably filled with anxiety, you're overwhelmed, and more importantly, you feel powerless. And that's why we're talking today, because in order for you to be the CEO of you, you have to operate in power. And so scarcity mindset doesn't work. And then if we begin to think about our mental capacity, because we're talking about how we improve our mental health today, you could be in a state of being disorganized, right? You have a narrow mindset. You're focused on what's not working. How many of you have that friend out there every single time they're calling you? They never stay in a space of gratitude. They're always talking about what they don't have, right? Instead of appreciating those things that they do have. That friend of yours, that coworker of yours, that is a scarcity mindset. So now let's look at abundance. That's the CEO of you. You are in full control over your life because you see yourself as someone who is sitting in the driver's seat of your life. You are in a room of people, you're relaxed because you understand that, hey, circumstances, you can't prevent them, but you can control how you respond to those circumstances. And so you are probably going to show up in a very different way. You're going to be present. You're going to be sitting in a place of confidence from a physical standpoint. And then emotionally, we're going to see you feel empowered. You're going to be engaged. You're going to be positive and energized in a place to where you can inspire others. But look at this mental energy. This is so important. You're feeling a sense of clarity. There is so much freedom that comes with clarity. And so if we begin to think about abundance, you're able to look at life from various angles. And that's going to be important when we begin to talk about things like resilience. So I'm seeing some action in chat. I just want to make sure that there's nothing I need to see. All right. Okay. All right. Let's keep going here. If you think about mindset shift, I like to put it into two major components. And if you are serious about shifting the things that are happening in your life, there are two areas we need to focus on. One, you have got to change how you think about yourself. There's so much power in you recognizing power, that you are special, that you are unique purpose, and it is our life's journey to connect with that purpose. And so shifting what we think about ourselves automatically shifts our life. The other thing is changing how we think about things, right? Again, circumstances are going to happen. We can't do anything about life happening to us. I always like to say life is out here lifing. And so nothing we can do about that, but we can absolutely control our response to those things. And so the rest of the time that we're going to spend today is going to be rooted in those two major focal components. And so if we were to even break it down even further, there are four areas that we're going to talk about today that's going to aid in creating that abundant mindset. The first step is going to be shifting your mindset to uncover any self-limiting beliefs. So anything that you're telling yourself that could cloud your vision. And this includes connecting with your authentic self and releasing those thoughts and beliefs that don't serve you, right? And then it's also important for us to spend some time identifying triggers and habits, and then understand the power that these thoughts, right, that we're constantly thinking every day have on our life. And then from there, we'll begin to create new habits, right, to replace those old ones. And so that we can get into a place where we're creating substantial changes, but sustainable change as well. And so let's start with the authenticity talk. I love the word authenticity. I know some of you are going to be going, oh my God, I've heard this term time and time again. Everything that we do is rooted in the power of us. And so if we're going to be talking about today how to become the CEO of you, it's important for us to understand authenticity and how we unleash that, because a big component of us being the CEO of ourselves or of our lives is that we are in tune, in step, and walking in our authenticity. And so what exactly is authenticity? I like to define it as you being true to yourself. And this is with honesty and openness and transparency. It happens when your words and your actions, as well as your behaviors, match who you are at the core, not who you think you're supposed to be, not who others want you to be. It's when all of these things align with your true identity, your core identity. It's also about presence, living in the moment with conviction and confidence, and then more importantly, staying true to who you are. But at the deepest level, authenticity for me, it illuminates a path forward for you to live the life that you want. When you get clear about who you are, when you care about what matters to you, you begin to make decisions in your life that align with your identity and your core values. And there's so much freedom in that. And then you begin to operate again from a place of confidence, from a place of transparency, as well as from a place of purpose. And we all know what happens when people are purpose driven, right? We see the increase in innovation. We see the increase in creativity. But I also want you to latch on to that word of freedom, because there's true freedom when you're operating in a space of who you truly are. In fact, there's studies that show that when we walk in our authenticity, we're more productive as employees, we're more innovative, we're less stressed, we're happier, we have improved health, we are confident. There is this strong sense of worthiness. Love and belonging comes from yourself. And so you're not out here seeking or craving that attention or from people to validate you, because you accept all of you, the good, the bad, the indifferent, and you own it. It sounds easy. I know, right? Who doesn't want to live a life of these types of elevated relationships built with trust? Well, I can tell you, during my 25 years in corporate life, I personally struggled with not being able to be myself and to be honest and open about all those things that were important to me. In many situations, I was the only Black, I was the only gay, I was the only female veteran, or in some cases, I was the first, right? And so working in a corporate environment, a lot of times I found myself kind of dealing with this severe identity crisis, right? Am I good enough? Should I be here? Imposter syndrome all begin to set in. And hindsight looking back, because we don't, as we're going through these life lessons that we're learning, we don't know what's happening. But in that moment, I can tell you, I was desperate to fit in. I wanted to be accepted. And I was willing to hide whatever part of me I needed to hide to be able to move my career ahead. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know that there's some people that are listening to me right now that are going, I am hiding bits and pieces of who I am right now, because I don't know if people see who I really am, if they're going to accept that, right? We keep these things from our friends, our family, we show up differently at work. I can tell you for myself, my personal journey, I was a shell of a being doing whatever I needed to do to be accepted. And that wasn't a place of thriving. I was surviving at work, right? I was highly stressed. I didn't feel a sense of belonging. And I kept waiting for someone to change the environment for me. I was in a space of not feeling unfulfilled, miserable. And I began to speak to some of my colleagues, and I found out that I wasn't alone. But I tell you, by shifting my mindset, I was able to change the trajectory of my career by aligning with who I was at the core and allowing that to be the foundation for the self-development journey that I took myself on. And I can tell you that when you are operating from a space of true authenticity, that is your superpower. It is your unique value that you're able to bring to the table. And so here are a few things that I learned on my journey as I begin to uncover or really come to terms with the fact that when I am walking in the truest form of who I am, that is when my superpower is released. And so I can tell you, I spent a lot of time in the self-reflection and self-awareness area. In order for us to even begin to talk about shifting our mindsets, we have to be aware of where we are. It is about uncovering and connecting with the real you. And in order to do this work, we have to be willing to let go of what you think you should be. And we're going to get into talking about limiting beliefs and why we believe that our lives should be a certain way. But in order for you to take this journey with me, in order for you to really unlock being the CEO of you and begin to live this elevated life, right, where you're in a constant state of thriving and not surviving, the first step is you have to be able to let go of what you think you should be so that you can invite in to the space what you are actually created to be. You must also accept that what people think about you is none of your business. I spend so much time in my own head, really trying to show up in a space of what I thought people wanted from me. That is never going to be a space of peace. It is never going to be a space of joy, because we all know that we cannot please all of the people all of the time. And so you have to make sure that you are in a space to where you understand what people think about you is not your business. That is 100% on them. It's not on you. It's also about self-care in this time. You have to be constantly reminding yourself that you are worthy and that you are good enough just the way that you are. Remember, life is about a journey of experiences. And so even when you make mistakes, you are still worthy. Even when you are not hitting milestones and goals that you want to achieve, you are still worthy and you are perfect just the way that you are. And then you spend some time asking some tough questions, right? Where are some times or some places or some people that I am around where I feel and I'm able to show up as my authentic self? What are some things about me, right, that people constantly tell me are standout and unique qualities that I may have? This time of self-reflection, this time of self-awareness, it really is an opportunity for you to really connect with who you are. And it's also important that during this time for you to make a personal commitment to take care of yourself. We have to be kind to ourselves. So many times we take care of others. We show compassion for others. We put others' needs first, and we don't do that for ourselves. I know everybody is familiar with the put your oxygen mask on first before you can put someone else's oxygen mask on. This is exactly what we're talking about during this stage of self-reflection and self-awareness. It is also an opportunity for you to begin to connect with your why, right? When you connect with your why, this gives your vision, your goals, purpose. And when you have purpose, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions begin to shift and transform with intention. You're plugged into your purpose, your vision. It becomes like this magnet that is pulling you in. You can't escape it. It is absolutely your destiny. And when you're walking in that authenticity towards your why, you begin to navigate differently. You'll begin to say no to those things or those people that don't move you closer to your vision. Again, freedom. You don't fall into the hype of being fed for so long because we've been told so many different things. You actually walk and begin to do what you are purposed to do. And when you do that, what society has deemed as what success looks like, you no longer operate in that box. So I'll tell you right now, if you are checking all of society's views of success and you're still feeling unfulfilled or miserable or lost where you are, I will invite you to check your why. All right, so let's talk about some limiting thoughts and beliefs. I do a lot of workshops around the country, and I always start off my workshops by asking this question of who are you? And I can tell you every single time I ask that question, people begin to describe themselves through things like their titles. They may say, hey, I'm Ceah Justice, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and then immediately begin to dictate their resume, right? But I'll tell you, those answers define what we do, roles we play, jobs we hold, but that does not talk about who we are. When I instruct people in my workshops, hey, I only want you to answer this question in terms of what you think about yourself. Do you think that you're beautiful? Do you think that you're creative, intelligent, funny? Or do you think that you are unworthy? Ooh, are you telling yourself that you're undeserving? Unconsciously, are you feeding yourself thoughts like I'm unlovable? Well, any way that you think about yourself, here's the reality. You are what you think you are, good or bad. That's what will determine the actions in your life. And so starting with the foundation of you are who you think you is important, because I know we are not thinking our own thoughts. I am a firm believer that everyone was created with a unique purpose, right? And it is our job to connect with that purpose in order for us to discover how to live our most fulfilling life. And we can't walk in that purpose if we're not walking in our true authentic selves. And we cannot be our authentic selves if we don't know who we are. But here's the reality. There is a reason many of us are walking around outside of our purpose. We're walking around not standing out. We're walking around not knowing who we are. And the reason is we have been programmed since the day we were born. And I'm gonna do a long dramatic pause there. We have been programmed since the day we were born. So we're not thinking our own thoughts. And so let me prove it to you. This slide here, when I ask the question, who are you? The reality is we may not know. In fact, being programmed is all we know. And so if we look at this, and I'm going to prove it to you, think about this. Cover your mouth when you fill in the blank. If you said sneeze, you're absolutely right. You probably didn't even have to think about that. We did not come out of the wombs knowing this, right? We did not. If no one told us that every single time you sneeze, you need to cover your mouth, we wouldn't know that. How about when you graduate high school, you need to go to where? College. Now, I didn't raise my kids that way. I now know that there's so many different paths, right, to living a fulfilling life, and college isn't for everyone. But how many of us, right, went through life being told by our parents that when you graduate high school, the next step is for you to go to college. This is not only initially programmed by the people that we love, but think about our peers, like think about society, think about the schooling and education systems that we were brought up in. And because of what they, right, thought our lives should be, they taught us, all with good intention, right? Or how about this one? I'm from Greenville, South Kakalaki, and I can tell you, having a grandmother that was old school, I said in that space that as a child, it's better to be seen and not heard. Ooh, think about how many of us are still walking around with that programming. We're sitting in meetings and we're not speaking up because it's like, I don't know. Maybe what I have to say isn't important. Maybe this is a situation where I should just listen. And so we're carrying around so many of these pre-programmed beliefs. Oh, I love this one. How about by the time I am 30, right, I should have XXX, you fill in the blank. Those are the ones, again, things that we are taught, and they are now sitting in our unconscious. They are. I remember that going back to, hey, children are better seen and not heard. Early in my career, I began unconsciously to walk in that, right? Because it was something that was fed to me. And so we have to be very, very careful about walking in our unconscious, right? Because from these examples, I hope that you can see there's a lot of pre-programming that started in us when we were very, very young. And if we're intentional about going back and looking at the belief systems that we have, they can now begin to control our lives going forward. And so, looking at these examples, it is no wonder that we do not know who we are. We are literally made up of bits and pieces of everybody. Things that our parents have told us, our spouses, society, and we are doing all of this on autopilot. We are taught what to think, but we are not taught how to think. So think about that. How many times did your parents or someone in your life sit you down and say, you know what, you don't have to believe anything that you've been taught, you're a free thinker. That's not how we were brought up. We were never directly told that the things we were taught were options, and they are options. And they're options that you don't have to adopt, right? We're grown-ups now. We don't have to walk in that space of a pre-programmed life, right? We actually get to decide how we are going to move forward. And so many of us, although we have accepted the way that we are, we don't have to. And so I want you to think about this. 75% of all impressions we receive are from birth to age 7, right? And so translation, by the time we're 7 years old, we are already programmed to view the world and act a certain way based on our influencers. Now, here I go. I'm telling you that right now, at the right age of whatever you are, you fill in the blank, you can think however you want. And yes, it is important that you do think independently, because who you think you are determines what you do. Now, I have fed you a lot of information right now. I hope that you have your notes out, because this mindset mastery model that I'm about to walk you through is a game changer. And it really is the foundation of everything that I'm going to teach you. And basically what it says is that situations occur every day in life. No one is immune to that. No one is immune to that. They're just facts. It is a fact that I am a Black woman. That is a fact. It is a fact that we are here on this video conference call. Those are just facts. Now, it's our programming. And remember from the previous slide, programming are inputs from our environment, from society, from people, right? It's mixed with fears and anxiety, and it determines how we think. This thinking can be negative or it can be positive. And it's our inputs or our programming that will put a polarization on a circumstance. And so let me explain that and break it down a little bit further. I'm a Black woman, that's a fact. I am an unlovable Black woman. Now that is a thought as a result of my programming, right? If I have grown up with the belief that because I'm a Black woman, I am unlovable, and that is the programming that is now in my head, that input based on a thought about myself that someone previously told me is now going to feed into my thoughts that I have about myself, right? So how you think, I am unworthy, I am overweight, I'm not good with my finances, I'm not a leader. All of those things create your feelings. And so sadness and hopelessness begin to set in if I think that I'm unlovable, right? I might begin to think if I'm unlovable, I might begin to feel ashamed, and all of the things that I feel, those negative things will begin to feed into my actions. If I think that I am unlovable, I may not enter into a relationship, right? If I think that I am unworthy, I may not put my name in the hat for that next promotion. And so my actions are now limited, right? If you don't think that you're worthy of love, you don't give love. You're not going to be open to receive love. You might even begin to sabotage relationships because of the thoughts that are in your head. And all of those things begin to manifest in actions. They begin to manifest in the results in your life, right? So if you think that you're unworthy, you may be sitting there alone. You may never, ever put your face out on a dating site, right? Because you feel like you're unlovable. You're not going to be sitting there hoping for relationships. And the results, you don't do anything, right? And so this mindset model of your programming feeds your thoughts. Whatever you think begins to manifest in feelings, and whatever you feel begins to manifest in actions and behaviors, and then that becomes the results of your life. And so I'm going to give you another example. I have identical twin boys, and growing up, the only thing that would send one of them running into a room crying was he called me ugly. Now, I just said they're identical twins, so that's funny. They look exactly alike. But for the sake of this example, and follow along with me, one of my son's names is Trey. And so Savion runs into the room and he says, Trey called me ugly and that hurt my feelings. Now, we have been taught to say, you hurt my feelings. Well, that's not actually what happened. Trey called Savion ugly. That was the circumstance, right? Now, Savion had to agree with what Trey said in order for him to feel hurt. Y'all see where I'm going with this? If Savion was sitting in all of his confidence and he knew that he is not ugly, what Trey said to him would have no effect. And so his response would have been different. His behavior would have been different. He wouldn't have been running into a room to tell on Trey. His feelings wouldn't be hurt because in that moment, he did not, believe what Trey had to say about him. And so again, the power of us controlling our actions. I want to give another example, and this is one I'm hoping that everyone can really, really relate to. I got two examples here. One is a current thought pattern, and I've been in this space, and I'm sure many of you have been in this space too. The situation, we have a friend, her name is Dawn. Lunch we scheduled at 12 o'clock. Dawn arrives at 12:07, right? And she sits down. Now, our thoughts, what we're telling ourselves, the programming is, I am always on time. I am never late. How dare Dawn disrespect my time, right? And so the thoughts that are happening in my head is, Dawn doesn't respect me. She's not a really great friend. She's very irresponsible with her time. And as a result, I feel rejected. I feel disrespected, right? I might begin to feel anger set in, right? And then the action would be, Dawn shows up and my attitude is nasty. I'm probably showing up and have some snarky comments for her. And what could ultimately happen is that could make Dawn feel some type of way. Dawn could ultimately say, you know what, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore. But when we have an optional thought pattern that's here on the right-hand side, what if we looked at it differently? Dawn is late. 12 o'clock is our time. She shows up at 12:07. My programming says, you know what? I'm always on time, but that's me. Maybe, right? Dawn lives on the other side of town and she is late because she's in traffic. What I could sit and be thinking is, oh my goodness, I am so glad I got here early. I'm not sitting in traffic. I would not want to be Dawn right now. Ooh, she is stuck in traffic and I don't want to be her. Now I'm sitting here feeling some empathy, right? I'm feeling sorry for Dawn. And so when Dawn walks in for lunch, I might say, oh, girl, you was in traffic. Oh my God. I'm so glad it wasn't me, right? And the interaction between us is going to be very, very different because I'm not feeling like her circumstance or the circumstance was personal against me. I'm not sitting here thinking that Dawn disrespected me. I am now looking at this from a place of life happens, right? Maybe she's stuck in traffic and I'm giving her grace. I am now operating from a space of grace. And so that interaction with my friend when she comes is going to be very, very different. So hopefully you see how much power, right? Your thoughts, right? What you're feeding yourself has over your own life. And if a thought does not serve you because it is an option, and I just share with you a lot of things that we think are facts, they're not, they're just options, then you have to understand that you can opt to think any other way that serves you better, because that's when you begin to create your own happiness, you begin to create your own peace, and you begin to own your own boundaries. And so after you identify those thoughts that are not working, you can then consciously choose what to think in its place. And so this mindset mastery model that I just gave you, you're thinking negative thoughts, I'm thinking something negative, I shouldn't be thinking negative. I know that negative thoughts do not serve me. And so in this moment, I can replace it with something that's positive, that does serve me. And so this means that horrible things can, again, happen in our life, but you don't have to make it something terrible about you. And this is how we build resilience. This is how we build agility. And it's so important, again, to make sure that we are checking our thoughts, because like I alluded to earlier, our thoughts get repeated over and over and over again until they ultimately become beliefs. And when you think that you're unworthy long enough, guess what? It's going to become a belief. When you think you are capable of anything long enough, it's going to become a belief. And so what you think is important because it determines your actions. And so that's why we spend so much time speaking and talking about mindset. And for me, the most important part about knowing that you can think differently is now it gives you and puts you in a place to where you truly can control what's happening in your life. And so in order for you to do that, again, you have to identify the current thoughts and patterns that are taking place. And so I love talking about habits and triggers. And one of my favorite parts of the workshop is talking about here. And I like to spend this time talking about this because it helps you really connect to the why of why we're having these types of conversations. When we're able to intentionally think about or control what we're thinking about, it puts us in a place of empowerment because we're now aware, right? And when we are aware, we are in control of how we show up. I can tell you early in my career, And if you can't tell with all of this energy and passion, I can tell you that earlier in my career, when something would happen, if someone disagreed, if I got feedback, my response, I think the kids nowadays say snapback game. My snapback game was strong. Someone said something to me, I immediately responded. There was no power of the pause in me. Oh boy, oh boy, the bridges that I burned because I was not aware of the thoughts that were happening. Remember, pre-programmed, they're unconscious, they're on autopilot. And when someone said something to me, I automatically responded, right? From a place of this person is attacking me, right? Again, had nothing to do with the person. Their presentation could have been great. They could have been spot on and given me the feedback, but because I had all of my pre-programming, right? Sometimes that shows up in a place of trauma, unresolved childhood trauma. My response was very, very different. Now I grew up, I learned the power of the pause. When something happens to me now, I'm able to assess my thoughts, right? Understand, hey, I'm feeling something. Recognize what I'm feeling, because feelings are fleeting. It's okay for us to feel them. We want to feel them. But what I do now is I own that I'm feeling it, and then I release it if it's not serving me. So if it's going to put me in a place to where I respond in a negative way, that doesn't serve me. And so I'm conscious and aware of that thought process. In fact, the National Science Foundation has told us that as humans, we have more than 70,000 thoughts per day. Think about that, 24 hours in a day, 70,000 thoughts per day. But now let me really blow your mind. 80% of those thoughts are negative. 70,000 thoughts per day. 80% of the things that we think on a day-to-day basis are negative thoughts. We can't help it. We've been pre-programmed. Now that you know that you have control, now that you know that 80% of what you think every single day is negative, you can now take a more intentional approach, right, to choosing what you're thinking. You can now be super intentional about what goes into your brain. And I can tell you, if you're anything like me, you're hoarding things in your brain because you just don't know what to do with them. And so I would encourage you to not be a hoarder of your past thoughts, to not be a hoarder of your actions, because again, we know the impact of what happens with our thoughts. If we're thinking bad things, it's going to show up in our feelings, and then feelings are going to lead to our actions and behaviors. And here's the reality. There's just not enough room in your brain for both negative and positive thoughts. One won't survive. And if we're already sitting here saying that 80% of our thoughts are negative, this is going to require us to do some intentional work to be able to combat the 80% of negative thoughts that are in our head. And so if you are hoarding anything, I am going to help you clean out that hoarding space, because when we get to a space to where we are cultivating mindfulness, we can then decipher those thoughts, right, that are creating that mindset of scarcity, right, or of abundance. And we want to make sure we're in that abundance space. And by taking the time to notice what type of thoughts were circulating in our head, we can then begin to make a conscious effort to shift those thoughts towards abundance. And so right now, this is a visual exercise. Wherever you're sitting, I want you to imagine that you just walked through the front door of your house, right? And we are, I'm your agent, I am your real estate agent, and we are going to do a room by room tour of the house of your thoughts. This is the house of your thoughts. So now imagine that your brain is this house, and you have categorized all of your thoughts inside one of these rooms. And so follow me as we tour this house. Now we're going to walk into the room of memories. Now the room of memories, this is where all of our thoughts, right, happen. It's mixed with feelings about what has happened to create this version, right, in our head of good or bad. Now we have to make sure that our memories, right, they're just that. They belong in the past. They're memories. They have no place in the present. And so we have to make sure that we make a conscious effort to keep this room free of clutter. Now let's walk into the room of subconscious thoughts. Now, these are all of your automatic thoughts. It is how you get to work every day without a GPS. It is how you get out of bed and you don't have to reteach yourself how to walk. Can you imagine getting up every day and having to reteach yourself how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, and all of the other things that are on autopilot, and we need them to be on autopilot. Your brain automates these things, right? Example, riding a bike, driving, covering your mouth when you sneeze, all of those things. And so we have to make sure that we visit this room on a daily basis by doing some thought downloads, right? So that we know what is actually in our heads, what's programmed. We have to be aware of that. And it's super important for us to keep this room clean, because remember, our subconscious thoughts determines our actions. Ooh, let's walk into the room of judgment. Now, most of us don't even realize that we judge ourselves all the time. It's not other people. We are our own worst enemy. We only look at judging through the lens of what we do to others. We got to clean this room out by loving yourself. This is the room that you need to spend a ton of time in, because it is the self-care room. And the more you love you, the more you love and appreciate others for their similarities and their difference. So it is important for you to keep this room tidy. What about the negative self-talk room? I like to call this one the bathroom. It is where all your stuff is stored. And it's speaking negatively to yourself. It is the worst thing that you can do, because at some point, your brain will begin to believe it. You'll start to act and feel and do according to all of those negative thoughts that were never true to begin with. And so a really good rule of thumb here is, if you do not say it to your child, if you would not say it to your best friend, if you would not say it to someone that you are leading, do not say it to yourself. Positive affirmations are a great way in reminding you of who you are, which leads us to the positive self-talk room. My favorite room to be in, I call this the kitchen, because this is where your soul gets fed, right? It is always an abundance of food here. And when you increase your positive self-talk, this changes lots of things in your life. And this could be journaling. This could be sticky notes. This could be a gratification or gratitude type app. It does not matter what it is. The point here is to make sure that you're surrounded by amazing, positive people, and that you are feeding yourself positivity, because this is what gives you confidence. This can be used as evidence that you are not all of the negative things that you are telling yourself, right? Because we've already said 80% of the thoughts in our head are going to be negative. But if you're constantly feeding yourself positive self-talk, guess what's going to happen? We're going to see that shift. When those negative thoughts begin to creep into your mind, you can go, I don't believe that. I know that I'm the bomb.com. And so whatever negative self-talk you're saying, it's not true. It doesn't mean anything to me. And this language we use, it begins to tell not just ourselves, but it also tells others what our realities are. So are you telling yourself stories of scarcity, or are you telling yourself stories of abundance? Great room for you to spend some time in. And then what about the room of plans? Don't let this be the room like your grandma's house. You remember at your grandma's house, there was this one room that you couldn't go into. It was the special room. It was the room for special occasions. I want you to do the opposite with your plans. We want you visiting your plans and your goals and your objectives and dreams daily. You've now connected with your purpose. You're clear in your vision. You need to always make sure that you're checking into this room, because we want you to share it with folks for accountability and keep it full so that, again, you have a purpose-filled life. And then one of my favorite rooms, we're going to call this the bedroom. And I call it the bedroom appreciation. You know, when your head hits the pillow after a long day and you are just so grateful to be laying your head down, that's the room of appreciation. And practicing gratitude is one of the most powerful and widely recognized tools for creating abundance and happiness, because when we are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears, right? And so we want to make sure that we show gratitude in everything. I don't care, the trees, your fingers, money that you haven't made, whatever it is. The bedroom of appreciation, we want to make sure that we're keeping that bed made up and that we are operating from a space of gratitude every single day. The reality is, if you want to live a life, or if you want a new version of your life, you're going to have to learn how to say goodbye to the old and usher in the new. And this process applies to every item in your house, right? If you want new furniture, you don't bring new furniture in and keep the old furniture there. You take the old furniture out. And so this just applies to your undesirable habits, to your relationships, to your jobs, and to your thoughts. And the reality is, there are things in our life right now that it's probably time for us to say goodbye to. And why do we do that? because it's pruning. Like, think about roses. If we're cutting down roses, why do we prune them? We prune them because if we don't cut them, they could begin to affect the rest of our lives. And so sometimes saying goodbye is necessary in order for us to level up, because we cannot always go to the next level if we are still operating in old habits. And so it's super important for us to let some things go. And so here on this slide, here are a couple of things that I always like to use as a checklist for me on when it's time to say goodbye, right? Would you buy it today? If you wouldn't buy it today, get rid of it. You don't need it. Would you start a relationship or friendship with the people that are in your circle today? If not, it's probably time to let them go. What about the way that you're thinking? If you are sitting and you're doing the thought download work and you're looking at, hey, these are the thoughts that I'm thinking. If they no longer serve you, it's probably time for you to say goodbye. Because when you are focused on creating life that you want, it is all about what you do. But the reality is a few of us are only willing to create the habits, right? Everybody is not in a space to do that. And so learning how to manage your thoughts, you must make this a journey that we look at every single day. And so many of you, I know you know it, you've heard the phrase, fake it until you make it. I don't believe in that. If we are faking it, we're telling our brain that that's the reality, right? And we don't want that. We actually want to do the opposite. And so I'm sure everyone on this call has heard the law of attraction, right? And the reality is the law of attraction tells us that we have to live life as is, right? It means that whatever our goals are, whatever we want to be in life, we have to show up in that way. And remember, 70,000 thoughts a day. There's a lot of clutter in our brain. We've already established that. And so in order for us to begin to do something different, we have to show up differently. And the law of attraction is great. I love it. I believe in it because it tells us that if we operate from a space of positivity or we operate from a space of negativity, that is going to yield exactly what we attract. And so in its simplest terms, think about when you get up in the morning and you heard the term, get up on the wrong side of the bed. And you get up and you're saying, oh my God, this is going to be the worst day ever. Everything that you do from that point forward is going to yield that, because you've just basically told your brain, hey, it's going to be the worst day ever. And so your brain is going to go, all right, it's the worst day ever. We got to make sure we bring that to fruition. And you're going to experience a not so good day because you've already set the scene for the day. That's the law of attraction, right? And in order to effectively change our negative thought patterns, right, around what we feel, we have to change the things that we say. Now, while I believe in the law of attraction, I think that there was one piece that they were missing. And for me, it is the law of action. If we say the law of attraction is the peanut butter, then the law of action is the jelly. You can't have one without the other. I remember friends, they read The Secret and they really thought that they were going to be millionaires just by thinking that they were going to be millionaires. Like, I could just sit here and I'm going to be a millionaire. And if I'm thinking every day I'm millionaire, then that's going to happen. No, there's action that has to take place. And while I love the video, The Secret, again, I felt like the law of action should have been in there because we get nowhere if we're not willing to put in the work to do it. Nothing is going to fall into your lap. You cannot be the CEO of you without you creating great habits, without you being aware of your thoughts, without you doing something intentionally to change where your life is right now. And so if we think about, living life as is, it really is about us finding ways to show up in gratitude, right? It is about us making sure that we recognize all of the things that I've talked to you about today. And us then refocusing, right, our mind on the intentions of positivity, the intentions of us yielding the life that we want to through things like gratitude, and then refocusing on that abundant mindset type talk track. And so now we have identified, we got clutter in our brain. We've shared some various ways that we can declutter that space. And so now we have to begin to do things to replace those negative or limiting beliefs that exist in our systems. And so if we think about how our brain works, Again, two parts of our brain. We have that frontal lobe, and that frontal lobe is our conscious decision-making brain. It is where our dreaming and imagining happens. It is big. It is requires lots of energy because it's processing, right? It is conscious. And so it is deliberately slow. I will tell you this part of our brain is not the brain that a part of our brain that causes us the most trouble. It is our cerebellum. This is our automatic conscious or unconscious part of our brain. And we have all of these neural pathways that are happening in this part of our brain. Because it's on autopilot, it is what keeps us safe. It is what keeps us in surviving mode. It does not require a ton of energy to process things. It is 2 + 2 is 4. We automatically know it because it is now a part of our unconscious. This is our autopilot part of our brain, and it is responsible for processing all of our thoughts. This is where we form our habits, right? It is our emotions. So it's also the place that we deal with when we're dealing with people. Why is all of this important? For all of the things that we just discussed, if 80% of what we do is on autopilot, we have to begin to create some things, right? Out of that autopilot space, out of the unconscious space, we now need to begin to be conscious of where we are operating. And so I like to call this, we're creating templates or new templates in our brain, right? If I said peanut butter, automatically your brain is gonna say jelly, right? If I sneeze, you're gonna automatically say bless you. We have to get those positive things about ourselves sitting in that unconscious space. And so that's why I like to, just kind of talk about the brain a little bit, because it allows us to then begin to create these templates for us to begin to get some positive or abundance mindset type skills into that unconscious or autopilot part of our space. And we want our brain to create these templates because it helps us to be more efficient. It helps us in terms of survival. And so if you have ever thought like, why in the world am I always thinking these things? There's nothing wrong with you. Our brains are the way that they are. And while we can't do anything about our brains, we can do something about what sits in our conscious and what sits in our subconscious. And so that duality of the mind, again, is super important. And so this slide looks really complicated. I'm going to break it down for you in simplest terms. Your conscious mind, which is your prefrontal cortex, is the executive functioning part of your brain, right? It is where you use all 5 of your senses, and it is not the part of the brain that does us the most harm. It is our subconscious mind, our cerebellum, the lower part of our brain. It is the subjective part of our brain, and it processes opinions based on memory. And so that's where we have to do the work, right? That is where we have to spend the time creating better habits for ourselves, because this is where we get control of the 80% of those negative thoughts. And so in order for us to change a habit, we have to make sure that we're using that executive functioning part of our brain to force us to do something different. And we do this by repeating the desired habit enough times so that that desired habit is now a new habit, which is why I say this work that we do, it's not easy. It is a constant, every single day journey to check your mindset, because as you can see, it's so easy for us to slide back into that autopilot part of the brain. And so when we start talking about how we create new habits, really easy. We have to be aware of the old habits that exist, right? And we could do that by doing thought downloads through journaling. At the end of the day, one of the things that I like to do is pull out a piece of paper and just brain dump, just every single thing that I thought about in my day. And then I begin to break it apart and make sure that when I go to sleep, that anything that is not true, because we tell our things, a lot of things that are not true through the day, I'm putting lines through it and I'm replacing it with a positive, right? Because again, we have a ton of limiting beliefs. And when our emotions are high, our logic is low. And so we want to make sure that on a daily basis, we are doing that work to assess what our current habits are. And then once we know what our current habits are, we can begin to map out a plan of new habits, right? So if you want to lose weight, you know that that's a plan of yours. You can begin to put a plan together to get you on that path. I'm a veteran, and one of the things that we did in my military career was we planned all the time for the real life situations that happened, right? We planned so that when these things happen, for real, we were prepared. It was part of our subconscious, right? We did not have to think about how to navigate the space because we practiced it so much, right? We planned it with our prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, before any emotion could get into how we could respond. Because can you imagine being in war and having to pull out a book of what to do? Nope, that needs to be stored so that when action time is ready, you are ready to respond. And you're able to do it without thinking, and you're also able to do it without being afraid, right? And so again, emotions are high, logic is low. And you want to create habits, repetition is going to be key. And so we are at the end. In summary, if you want to be the CEO of you, you've got to change the things that you're telling yourself about you. You have got to change the things that you're telling yourself about the world and the circumstances that we can't do anything about. Remember, everyone is going to encounter some type of circumstance in their life. The only thing we can do is choose how we can respond. And if you continue to make an investment in yourself, again, mindset, this isn't something that you're going to be good at leaving this workshop today. This is just a precursor to get you thinking about your thoughts, getting you to a place of where you're more aware of what you're thinking so that you can begin to shift that on a daily basis by being intentional about this work. And when you're able to do that, you will begin to see the life that you want manifest. You'll begin to see the positive things that you're looking to see in your life come to fruition because your relationship with yourself and the world around you has shifted. You are now walking in an abundant mindset. Now, this course that I just shared with you today, we did it in an hour. This is a workshop that I usually take an entire day to go through. Again, the intent is just to get you thinking about your thoughts. If there's nothing that you take away from today's session, I want you to know and remember that we think 70,000 thoughts a day. And 80% of those thoughts are negative. And so if you are looking at your life right now and it's not the way that you want it to be, I encourage you to begin to look at your thoughts. Let that be the first place that you go to when you begin this new journey of moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. I'm so grateful for the time here with all of you today. I think we have a little time for some Q&A. And so I will turn it over to our moderator. If we have some questions, I will be more than happy to answer. We can't hear you. You may be muted.
Is that better? Great. Okay, we do have a question from Anonymous, and the question is, how do you make these concepts part of your everyday life? I always love these conversations, but it can be so easy to forget them in the middle of a busy day.
Yes. Oh, what a fantastic question. It goes down to that planning piece that I talked about. Everything has to be planned out. And so one of that I encourage a lot of my clients to do is to look at their entire day. And I like to call it snatching your calendar. Look at every single hour of your day and plan it out. That could be you planning out what you're eating. That could be planning out when you're journaling, making sure that you have a routine. I can tell you for me, in the morning, I work out. First thing I do is work out, and then I create a time of meditation for me to make sure that I am starting my day from a place of gratitude. And that could be journaling, could be tapping into a podcast, watching some YouTube videos, whatever it's going to take to get you into that positive mindset. And then I also do things like create apps on my phone or have apps on my phone throughout the day. I have a gratitude app, and that always brings me back to center. I can go, hey, oh my goodness, I started out on a good foot. The day has happened, and now I might be thinking some negative thoughts. And then I'll get that notification on my phone from the gratitude app, and it forces me to open up that app and then pause in the moment, and then say, hey, what is it that I'm grateful for? And that allows me to come back center. It allows me to come back to that place of gratitude. And now I can go back and begin to navigate my day. And so the answer to that question is you have to plan out your day. In order for you to do this and create those lasting habits, it has to be something that you plan, and then you got to stick to it. And even if you fall off, you come back to that same plan, and then give yourself some grace, right? Hey, I got through, I did great. I stuck to my plan at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I kind of fell off. And then the next day, try to get to 3. Then the next day, try to get to 4. And so it really is, the key to it is really set in making sure that you are planning and being intentional about everything that you're doing every day.
If we have any other questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. And with that, Ceah, I will leave you with any closing remarks you have before we close out the session.
Yes, absolutely. If you have more information or you want more information around anything that I've talked about today, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. It's Ceah Justice, and then DM me or send me a message. I would be more than happy to continue to have conversations with you. Whoever asked that question about, how to make this part of the core of who you are, send me a message. I would love to share with you some additional resources, worksheets, and things like that to help you on this journey. I will tell you that I walk and live this every single day, and it has been, if I look at the success that I've had in my career, or even now the peace and joy that I have in my life and how I'm able to navigate this very, very complicated space that we're in, which is just living in this world, this type of work, it works. It absolutely does work.
Great. And we do have a couple questions if we have time. If you can share more about the brain dump, that is one of our questions.
Okay, it says share the screen about is it the duality portion? It says. We got a couple of slides in here about brains.
Yes, they weren't specific.
So this slide here is good. And I can kind of talk to this a little bit more. Our brains, we have our conscious and we have our subconscious part of the brain. And the duality of the mind is saying our conscious mind, while it is responsible for reasoning and logic, it is not the brain that steers us, right? It is not what's in the driver's seat. If we're saying that 80% of our thoughts are negative, if we're saying that 80% of what we do in a given day, I would even, bump that up. 90% of what we do in a given day is on autopilot, which is sitting in our subconscious mind. We have to spend time really being intentional about what's happening in that subconscious space, right? We don't think about that. We don't spend time thinking about our subconscious because it just happens. And so if we think about, we get up and we drive to work, if you have made that trip to work, 50 times, you don't even need your navigation anymore, right? It is now in your subconscious. But if they move your work, if they move your building, right, you're now going to have to go to the conscious part of your brain. You're now going to have to now begin to look at where you're building. I need my GPS until it is now stored conscious. And so the whole talk about today is recognizing that majority of what we do happens on autopilot. And if we want to see changes in our life, we have to change those things that are on autopilot, which means that we have to spend more time looking at and being intentional about what is happening in that subconscious space. And then once we are aware of those thoughts and things that are happening in that subconscious space, we can then begin to use the logical part of our brain to replace what's on autopilot, right? If we have something that is on autopilot, like negative self-talk, we stay in that space a lot. It's so easy for us when something happens to go, man, I can never do anything right. Oh, God, something is always going wrong. If we say those things and we are not aware of them, it's going to what? Manifest exactly what we said, because we put it in the universe. But if I say, oh my God, nothing ever goes right for me, and I go, wait a minute, hold on, that's not true. Just yesterday, I had this thing go right for me. When we are able to think in the moment around what's happening in our subconscious, we can then do exactly what I just did. That's not true. What I just told myself is absolutely not true. And I actually have some data to support it. And so that's what the duality of the mind model is about. It tells us that we have this really, really big portion of our brain that's so important, which is our conscious part of our brain. But the reality is that's not what drives us. And so where we have to spend our time is on what's happening in the autopilot space, so that we can control what's on autopilot.
Thank you so much, Ceah. And one last question. How can you encourage other team members to walk in their own authenticity?
Is create a space for that. I just joined a new team. I work for Raytheon now. And I've been with them a little over a year, and I can tell you my energy and my passion, I'm different than anybody on my team. And one of the things that I noticed on my team was individually one-on-one, people showed up very differently. I walk in my authenticity, and so it automatically invites other people to do that, right? When I am sitting here and I am being my authentic self, it invites them to do the same. One of the things that I begin to do with some of my colleagues, and I'm so excited, this story, and I know we're about to run out of time, but this one guy on my team in particular really struggled with that, because when he was his authentic self, he got all of this feedback from everyone else that said, you need to not do that. You need to stay in this box. And what did I tell y'all earlier? What people think about you is not your business, right? And so I would constantly tell him that, hey, listen, Eric, what people think about you is not your business. You have to make sure that what you're doing feels good to you. And when you lay your head down at the end of a day, are you happy with the person that you are? Do you feel connected to something bigger than who you are? And if the answer is yes, then you got to show up in that space, as hard as it may be, with courage every single time. And I constantly encouraged him. When I saw him not being authentic, when I saw him kind of backtracking or, kind of fitting in, I would, if it's on a Zoom call, I say, hey, Eric, authenticity. And I constantly encouraged him to do that. 2 weeks ago, after listening to this guy talk about he's never going to get promoted, he's been blacklisted in the company, no one sees his value, he has been showing up authentically, right? Because now he's like, I don't have anything to lose. Nobody is promoting me anyway, so I might as well just show up as my authentic self. He got promoted to associate director last week. And when he got the news, one of the things that was said to him during that time was, we appreciate you coming and showing up as your authentic self, because what you have to offer, your unique value, is exactly what we need on the team. And so I would say, won't be authentic. I think when you're showing up from a place of authenticity, it invites others around you to do the same. Then if you see people that are showing up in a place that is very incongruent with who they are, encourage them, help create a space to where they feel safe to bring or be their whole selves, or to bring that authenticity into the workplace or into the work group or whatever it is, that we need them to show up in that authenticity in.
Thank you so much. And that concludes our Q&A for this session. And on behalf of Greenville Chamber's 6th Annual DEI Summit and presenting sponsor Michelin North America, I would like to thank Ceah Justice and you for participation in this event. At this time, you may log out and transition to the next segment of today's summit as per the agenda. This concludes the session. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.